Let me tell you a story. 1689. Female landowners are allowed to vote in elections to the States of Friesland in rural districts. Friesland is now part of the Netherlands, by the way, it has its own language. 1799. John Chavis is the first black person on record to attend an American college or university at what is now Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia. There's no record of a degree, however. 1823. Alexander Lucius Twilight becomes the first known African American to graduate from a college in the United States. He received a bachelor's degree from Middlebury College in Vermont. He became an American educator, minister, and politician. First African American elected as a state legislator, serving in the Vermont House of Representatives, and the only African American elected as a state legislator before the Civil War. 1841. Abraham Lincoln, who is still a young lawyer at that point, wins a Supreme Court case in Illinois which frees Nance. I've been communicating with a Nancy. Nance Legends Costly from indentured servitude, thereby also setting her son free, presumed to be the first black male slave who was freed in the United States, that is. 1863, Abraham Lincoln, as President of the United States, issues the Emancipation Proclamation, which declares all slaves in rebel states that are not under Union control to be free. 1870, the first woman is admitted to Cornell University in the United States. 1871, Harriet Cook becomes the first female college professor in the United States. Pay attention, a full professor with a salary equal to that of the male professors. 1871, that was. 1871. 1893, New Zealand is the first self-governing colony in the world in which all the women are given the right to vote in parliamentary elections. However, women were still barred from standing for election until 1919. 1920, Oxford starts awarding degrees to women. Imagine that. Women used to be barred from academia because their thigh bones were too long, and academic activity was supposed to damage their reproductive organs. Imagine that. Women had studied and completed Oxford. Oh, yeah, I'm a little bit tipsy. Enjoy. Women had studied and completed degrees at Oxford since the 1870s. Men had had full access for centuries. Italy, on the other hand, was very early with giving women access to universities and degrees, and I want to mention that. That was hilarious. I want to mention that because Italy is traditionally thought of as being very unemancipated, but it's the English-speaking countries that in practice are very unemancipated. 1933. Franklin Roosevelt becomes America's first president who uses a wheelchair. His disability is mostly kept hidden from the public. He is elected to more terms than any other US president, and he did it in a wheelchair. 1964, women are allowed to vote in Libya, people, Papua New Guinea, territory of Papua and territory of New Guinea, and Sudan. 1964, women are allowed to vote. 1966, women are allowed to vote in the Swiss canton of Basel-Stadt. 1971, women can vote in Switzerland at the federal level. 1980, women can vote in Iraq. 1980, also, Guillaume Bluford becomes the first black astronaut to go into space in 1983. At least that's what they say, but it had actually already happened 3 years earlier, hence 1980, on a Russian Soyuz spacecraft, and it was Arnoldo Tamayo Mendez, a Cuban of African descent, who did that. 1984, so that's 4 years after Iraq, women can vote in Liechtenstein. 1991, the Federal Supreme Court of Switzerland forces the Swiss canton of Appenzell-Innerrhoden to accept women's suffrage. Women can vote now. That's how many years after Iraq, people? 2006, Katie Apostolidis, a woman born with Down syndrome, studies art with a major in education at Becker College, a small liberal arts school in Massachusetts. 2007, Brittany Eckline enrolls as a freshman student at the University of Pennsylvania at age 15. This makes her the youngest African-American female ever to enroll at an Ivy League university. 2009, Barack Obama becomes the first non-white and the first black US president. And the first black US president, yeah. 2012, Otis Krzyzanauskas, Canada's first male midwife. 2012, Otis Krzyzanauskas, Canada's first male midwife, graduates with a Bachelor of Sciences in Midwifery from McMaster University. 2012, educator, an autistic guy who spent the first half of his life completely trapped in silence, publishes his first book, Edo in Autism Land. He had to fight to get an education, but he succeeded. He graduated high school with a diploma and a 3.9 GPA. He's continuing his education in college. He communicates by typing on an iPad or letterboard. He later published a second book, In Two Worlds, which is a novel. 2013, a Kentucky woman with Down syndrome graduates from a technical college. 2013, too, Angela Bachelor, if I pronounce it correctly, a woman born with Down syndrome is sworn in as a city councillor for the Spanish city of Valladolid. 2014, Ezra Roy, a man born with Down syndrome, graduates magna cum laude from Texas Southern University with a bachelor's degree with art as his major and a minor in theater. We've been keeping people back, people. Disabilities are to a large degree created by society. This needs to stop. 2015, women's suffrage is introduced in Saudi Arabia along with the right to run for municipal elections. 2016, Hope Banks, a woman with Down syndrome, graduates from college in the United States. 2017, Anne Catherine Heigl, a cheerleader from Zionsville, Indiana, also with Down syndrome, is accepted to George Mason University. 2018, Odette Harris becomes the first black woman professor of neurosurgery in the US at Stanford. 2018, Johnny P., a man with Down syndrome, is accepted to Utah State University. Utah. 2018, Nicolas Jancourt directs a video which is published online. He's a pianist, a non-speaking autistic, and a university student in France. He types to communicate. He earlier wrote an article about his right to an education and not to be locked up, people. 2018, a cafe in Japan starts experimenting with using robots remotely operated by people with severe physical disabilities. I disable an app, I disable commands, I disable a program, I don't disable people. 2023, gender equality still 300 years away, says the United Nations Secretary General. And once upon a time, people like me weren't accepted into academia because intellectual activities were deemed to damage our reproductive system, and the length of our thigh bones was thought to have something to do with that as well. It's 2024 and we're still as stupid as ever.